Hi, so today we're going to talk about rhythm. So most songs that you listen to, this isn't totally true for every song, but a lot of songs that you listen to, when you're listening to it, it has a beat. That beat can be followed by just counting 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot of music has this. It's going to be different for different songs. Sometimes you'll find it'll only count to 3, or sometimes it'll count to 5, or sometimes 6. So it's gonna change depending on the song. But as a good general rule, right? I like to stick with 4 in the beginning, just because 1, it's very simple, and 2, a lot of songs use 4 as a way of counting. So this is how this works. So we're going to break it down to the different types of notes that you can play in 4. Okay, so when I say note, what I really mean is how long a sound would last. So when I say how we're playing a note, we're not talking about a single sound. It could be one sound, which is also a note, or it could be a chord. It could be an entire chord. So this is a different definition of note than what we've been using when we're talking about, oh, I played a C note or I played a D. That's a sound note. This is how long the sound lasts. So the first note we're going to go over is a whole note. So the whole note will start at 1, and it's going to go on its own all the way to the end of 4. So I'm going to explain that in a second too, the end of 4. Not at 4, but at the end of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So there is a little extra space here, like the space between 1 and 2, right? We also have to add that space at the end of 4, because it's going to belong there too. So we call this a whole note. Okay, so here, I'll write that down. Whole note. Because it takes up, and it's called whole. This is called whole because it takes up the whole 4 count. Then, what we have next this here is called a half note. It'll take up half. So that's going to take up half the time of a whole note, right? Very simple to understand, right? 4 to 2. So our whole note we have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And our half note we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice I'm stopping right as soon as I get to 3. It's like here, we're stopping right before we get to 4. Okay, so the next thing we have is the thing that's half of a whole half note. And that is called a quarter note. So a quarter note will only last for the 1 count. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's our quarter note. Now we start getting into something where we're going to start splitting up the quarter note into pieces too. Okay, so a quarter note, we can play 4 of these quarter notes inside of a 4 count. Right? So when we're counting, we're actually counting quarter notes. Now, we're going to split this up into smaller and smaller increments now. So what we have here, so this here is an 8th note. So an 8th note only lasts half the amount of time of a quarter note. Now, in order to really understand an 8th note, or how we're going to play it in this 4 count, the easiest thing to do is to add an and in our counting. So we're going to count these 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now you can see why we have this gap here, right? Or why that was there. So that way now we can actually fit 8 of these notes into here. So we could break this down to even smaller increments. I'm going to do that right now. Alright, so this one's a little trickier. And this little tiny one here, this is called a 16th note. So with our 8th note, when we're playing it, right, so I'm going to run through all of these now. So whole note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Half note, 1, 2, 3, 4. Quarter note, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 8th note, now remember we have to start counting with the and in order to get that split, the division. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now with the 16th note, we're going to have to change the way we count again. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to split the and into three syllables. So when we start counting like this, we're just going to say 1 E and da. E and da. Now some people might say that a little bit differently. They'll say and or and da. So it's E and da, E and da. You know, it's pretty much going to be the same thing. Some people just may have a little disagreement about how that's said, and that's fine. The results are going to be the same. So you do it either which way you want. But now, when we do this, we're going to be counting 1 E and 2 E and and we can stick 16 of these notes in this 4 count. So that would be like 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so you see how short this 16th note here actually lasts. It's very short. So because of that, we can really stick a lot of these inside of something that we're playing. And you hear a lot of 8th notes, a lot of quarter notes, a lot of 16th notes. Probably in the music that you're listening to, you're going to hear a lot of these, more so than these. I mean, it depends on what kind of music you're listening to, what kind of music you're trying to play. With beginners, it's a little easier to handle these because it does give you time to prepare yourself to switch from one chord to the next. And with some songs, you can get away with doing whole notes and half notes in songs just because they're kind of more like singing and stuff like that. But once we get into really playing, really into the heart of playing guitar, you're going to run into quarter notes, 8th notes, and 16th notes a lot more. So I would say it's really good to get to know how to do the counting. I'm going to show you how to do this now. I'm going to show you a little something here, okay, so that you can see how this is put together. So let's say we're going to run through this, and what we're going to do is we're going to do the same chord. We're going to do the chord the first time. We're going to do a whole note through the whole count. The second time we're going to do 2 half notes. So we're going to play that same chord. We're going to do twice. Then we're going to do 4 quarter notes. So we're going to play this quarter note 4 times in the same count. Then we're going to do the same thing with 8th notes. So we're going to play all 8th notes throughout this whole count. And then we're going to do 16th notes. Now, what's really good, and I don't think I have one here, which is fine, but what's really good to have is something called a metronome. A metronome is just a thing that just does clicks for you. It's very consistent. It's a little machine that clicks for you. And I don't actually have one here with me now, so I'm just going to actually count it, and you're going to hear how we're going to switch. And you can do this with me. I'll show you what chord I'm going to play. So if you want to play along with me, that's fine. You can do that. But we're going to do whole note, all half notes, all quarter notes. We're going to fill the whole space up with these different types of notes. Okay? So I'm using a C chord. Okay? So you can do C with me, and we're gonna do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. So that I just ran through the whole thing. And now we can mix these up too. You can also mix these stuff up. So if you want to do some 8th notes and some 16th notes and some quarter notes and a half note, this is what you have to use. So you can go like, let's say we're going to do a half note and then 2 quarter notes. So we would go 1, 2, that's great. So we can mix and match of all these different note durations to come up with different types of rhythms we can do. Okay, so we can take, let's say we take a quarter note, eighth notes, and then end on 16th notes. We can do that. So we can go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3. So you see what we did there was quarter note, 2 eighth notes, and 4 16th notes. And that was that rhythm that we just played. Now, we have the opposite of this. So when we're talking about notes, we're talking about actually just playing sounds. But we can do the exact reverse of this and play no sound for the same amount of time. In that case, we would have something called a rest. So a rest is the exact opposite of the note. It is a moment in time when you don't play. And people will argue this. Some people say that rests are more important than the notes. And I'm not going to make one more important than the other. But I would say that without rests, a song wouldn't be the way it is. You know, sometimes some of the best parts in a song has something where you go, and you get that rest in there that really builds up that when the notes do come in and they start playing, it really gives it more punch to it. Or sometimes it adds for a dramatic feeling, some effect. So rests are very useful, and we can put them in there too. They do share the same name. So whole rest would be not playing for the 4 count. Half rest, not playing for 2 counts. Quarter rest, not playing for 1 count. The 8th rest would be not playing for that half of a count. And the 16th rest would be not playing for that 1/4 of a count. So it's it's the exact opposite, right? The reverse end of it. So that's what we have to use. So go ahead, write down the number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Write those numbers down on a piece of paper, and then draw out your whole notes and your rests, all your different notes and all your different rests, and see what kind of rhythms you can come up with just by using this little chart here, and then try playing them. Okay, once you get really good at that, go ahead and try switching some chords and challenging yourself with them too. Alright, so I hope this video helped, and I'll see you in the next video.